Hey, it's me again, and I'm back, and I didn't make videos for a while. I haven't made videos for, consistent videos for quite a few days. It's been like 2 a week. If you'd like to see this story, let me know, because I can put up the story of why I was kind of MIA for a while. It was very stressful. Essentially it boiled down to I got hired onto a company. Once I realized how much their commissions were as an independent teacher, I tried to raise my rates to compensate for that, and I got told by the boss, like, no, you have to start out low to get more customers. But with the commission rates, it wound up being anywhere from, $2 an hour to $8 an hour, and it would take me at minimum 8 months to get, like, slowly increasing my rates enough to get to where I was at the previous job, which was making about, $23 an hour. And that doesn't even count commission fees. So I'm like, and this was more work than the other company, way more work, because every parent wanted their own curriculum. They wanted me to send a book. They were asking homework and me to grade the homework for the kid. And I was like, that's a $60 an hour job, not, $2 to $8 an hour. I can make you a curriculum and send you a book, but I can't go purchase a book. I can't, for a child, I can't purchase the Let's Go series and send it to you for $2 to $8 an hour. Sorry. Or I can't, get you this story problem math book and explain to you it. So yeah, a big part of my old job was explaining story problems to Chinese, Taiwanese, Hong Kong students, mainland China. Now, sadly, you can't work. Dovetailed really, seamlessly into dividends and explaining that on YouTube. I think that's why a lot of people like it. Because I do. That's how I explain it. So I actually applied to another company which is explaining business terminology and coming up with a business terminology curriculum to foreign people who want an MBA. And I'm like, oh, that's like right up my alley now with the YouTube and my previous experience as an educator. I was actually a top educator in China. I worked at the largest online education company in mainland China, and I was in the top 5 percentile of teachers. I quickly got up, being expressive, being happy, explaining things. Also, I have a mountain of toys and puppets. Dog puppet. So I have lots of puppets. These are just puppets. The list of puppets go on. Actually, I have 3 more puppets over there. And I have all the cars and lots of things to engage children with, because a child a lot of times would be afraid of talking with a foreigner, but if they talk with a puppet, it's better. So sometimes the puppet would teach a math class. And I was tempted to do that, have videos where it's just a puppet explaining things. Okay. So that's my backstory. But there's 5 different things I want to talk about that's been happening. There's about 5 different things. So there's a potential, I want to say McCabe and Masterson exercised their options to buy the Hazel project based on, speak is getting in the way, based on this recent sale. Stock Twitch user MMTLP TRCH provided me with this link. This seems to match up pretty closely. It's not exact, but it matches up closely with the McCabe Masterson and the price they would get if they exercised their options. It seems they did. If they did, they just turned around and flipped this land. The Hazel project was on the cusp of 4 different counties. It was on the corner of 4 different counties. This one just lists the one county, but, 10,000 acres. The property was for more than 10,000 acres, but it sort of makes sense. Again, 2 private, undisclosed sellers. McCabe and Masterson were 2 people, and it would have been a private transaction at that point between, private ownership and this company here. But it talks about the gas and oil percentages, which is really cool. And again, they got a very good price, I think, on this property. And that's a low price. And it makes sense if McCabe sold this property and then he was the grantor of, or he financed the whole drilling for the new rigs, because, you know, here he is with this property, and drilling began around that time too. For the Oro Grande asset, that's when the drilling began, was after this was sold. So I find that really like, So let's talk about what might happen. All right, this is just a speculative theory. Again, this isn't financial advice. This is just wild speculation on my part, and you're just following along to my speculation. I have some notes here. This is how I think it's going to go down. This is called the Oilco spinout theory. All right. Okay. Again, this is based off of the Oilco documents that shows 250 million shares of Oilco, which is an odd number. But this sort of makes sense. If you look at it this way, it sort of makes sense. As well as 25 million preferred shares. And we know this sort of matches the sale price because the holdback dividend is going to be 10%, and the 25 million is 10% of 250 million. So that sort of matches. So let's do the conversion rate. You have 165 million MMTLPs as conferred by Berta. Indeed, that is the outstanding amount of MMTLPs. So your conversion rate is 1 MMTLP is equal to 1.515 Oilco shares, right? Now, you're going to get 1 preferred Oilco share for every 10 Oilco regular shares you have, right? That conversion rate works out to, with the 1.515, 6.6 MMTLPs is equal to 1 Series A preferred share before everything gets called. This kind of works in our favor. So what's going to happen is MMTLP, it's going to get called. There's going to be an announcement that says MMTLP is going to go into Oilco. All right. Then, once it goes into Oilco, you're going to have NextBridge, or the buyer. I'm going to say NextBridge because of their website. The website sort of matches with the Oro Grande. Okay, so NextBridge is going to come in. Maybe, you know, how they get the money. Well, maybe they were VC financed. I have a theory that says EIG is going to be the financier. I could be wrong. I just went with EIG due to its connections with Nextra. EIG is connected with Nextra. EIG is also connected with Chesapeake, and some of these people from NextBridge are from Chesapeake. EIG also has connections to Torchlight because the drilling operations team that did the Oro Grande and the other Torchlight assets, the Winkler project, that was Mecco 4 and Maverick. They were all backed by EIG. They were private equity backed companies by EIG. So NextBridge is going to come in and they're going to say to us, we'll take 49% of the shares right now. Why 49%? Let's pull up this document. I actually found this document yesterday applying for jobs. So I quit, and I was applying to this other job that I found, and it was writing business textbooks. And one of the questions, you know, to apply to this company was explain, as you would a child, because you're talking to foreign people, what a wholly owned subsidiary is. And I was like, wow, that is like, it's serendipitous. What a coincidence. So, I was trying to cite the actual tax advantages of spinouts, and I found this source here, and you can read it. So what happens is what they want to sell is spun off into a wholly owned subsidiary, which is then acquired by a third party. And that creates the tax deferred event. And we all know that Berta wanted a tax deferred event. As on my previous videos, I stated his goal was a tax deferred event. So you have Oilco Holdings. The company is not going to be called Oilco. It's just private holdings, and we need the holdings because it has to work with the spin out. All right, because it's going to be like a pro rata thing indeed. So they're going to come in with 49%. According to this document, the buying company cannot take 50% or more of the wholly owned subsidiary, else it's taxed. So what they do is they come in now immediately and they buy it. Okay? They're going to give 49% of the value. Once they buy half of your shares, now you own... We'll use this as an example. Let's say you have 1,000 MMTLP shares. You have 1,000 MMTLPs, okay? Once you convert it, you have 1,515 Oilcos after the conversion, okay? And now you're also going to have 660 preferred shares. Next bridge comes in and they're like, oh, I'll give you the dividend for half of your shares now. Okay. So now you own, instead of 1,500 Oilco shares, you own. Then they announce something. Well, they do it. Okay. The transaction is thus concluded on 60 days from this initial date. That's when the transaction is concluded. And I will cite the official press release of Meta because official press releases is the key. So let's cite that. Let's take a look. Remember what I said about that last paragraph in my previous video after this press release in January 14th was released? The last paragraph is the key, and we read it together. Let's go back and read it. Meta currently plans to complete the spin-out of Oilco as quickly as it can with a target of March 2022, subject to compliance with legal requirements and approval of all parties, blah, blah, blah. And, they're going to transferred as rapidly as possible to the Series A preferred stockholder. So they're going to complete the spin out of Oilco, not the spin out of the Torchlight assets to Oilco. No, the complete spin out of Oilco. The transaction will be concluded, okay, by the end of March. That gives us 60 days. Why is there a 60-day window? So, according to this document and the 355 rule on spinouts with the IRS, and you can look up these case studies, this one doesn't really cite the 60-day, but I will give you this other slide from an attorney of spinouts that talk about that 60-day. Here's another post edit. Let's take a look at under the 60 days. It says here, debt exchange must occur within 30 days after initial distribution of SpinCo stock to shareholders. So what that means is that once the shares are converted into Oilco, you have 30 days or less to receive the payment. That will be payment 1. So thus, again, we want this to go as quickly as possible, so it's going to be less than 30 days. So it could go right into Oilco, And then, boop, you get your instant payment right there. And then 60 days later, after the conclusion of the transaction, you're going to get the second payment. Okay, so we have this 60-day window, guys. That's why they're going to buy half of your shares now, basically 49% now. And then after 60 days after the sale concludes, for that tax deferred event, the rest of that 51% is then going to be given to you. That's why we need, and that puts it at the end of March. If you do sometime soon, by the end of January, 60 days later, because there's only 28 days in February, that concludes the end of March. That will be when the spinout of Oilco is done, because it's the end of March. That's 60 days. Okay. Because of this IRS ruling, and as you can see here with the tax advantages of the spinout, and there's this this less than 50% rule. How do we get around it? We need this big Oilco company, and we're going to have to strategically do this to pass the IRS test rules to get the tax deferred event. Okay. This is complicated accounting. So yeah, they're going to come in and they're going to get half your shares, right? Oilco, and then 60 days, you're going to get the other half, okay? And then we still got that 10% to deal with, because that's your holdback dividend. And that will be given, you know, within a year. Within a year. And who knows what will happen to that by then. But looking at this document here about spinouts, and the third party coming in and merging or acquiring the asset, and these IRS rules, it seems like there's going to be a 60-day window, and that's why you need that private Oilco holdings company. Again, they're going to come in, get half of your shares, possibly at the end of January. We will see. Once it goes into Oilco, they'll get half your shares. And then in 60 days, you know, by the end of March, you get the other half. And then that concludes the transaction. That's when, according to the official meta document, it's the complete spinout of Oilco. And 60 days would be as quickly as it could do it. That would be as quick as it can. Again, they were working with attorneys on this, right? And here is an attorney that specializes in spinouts and tax deferred events. So there's rules and regulations with the IRS you kind of have to tiptoe around, because there's all these tests. That's why we have Oilco. And you know, it could, with that 10% holdback dividend, it's not the complete value of the company. Because you got that 10%. So they might wind up getting half of the shares, you know, of Oilco at first. 125 million shares. And then the next transaction would be the other 125 million shares, and you have that 10% left over. They could do that. 250 million is a lot more of a rounder number than 165. But it seems like there's going to be a possible 3 transactions. You're going to get one. If this plays out according to these particular rules with spinouts and tax deferred events, you're going to get money initially, or it could be shares also. You're going to get some sort of value. Initially. But if it stays private, they pretty much have to, like, basically buy all your shares. They have to buy all your shares. It's what I calculated out to be. And if it is tax-free, if it is tax deferred, that's a much higher, you know, no corporate tax because of that VC money, and then tax deferred to you because of this spinout situation with the holdings company. That translates to a much higher dividend. As a result, even if the sale price of the asset's a bit lower, you still wind up getting something pretty significant. You know, my calculations on our asset, what it's worth, have been 29 to 46, right? And my personal range was 35, 34 is what I calculated it out to be. I'm going to stick with those numbers just in case, because if it was a tax deferred event and VC no corporate tax, the sale price can be negotiated a little bit lower, but I think it will still equal out to about that. Like I said, it provides better, VC funding provides better monetary value to every party involved. We've talked about that in previous videos. VC comes in, they buy this property, and the torchlight cut, you know, if it's about 9.6 billion, this is just hypothetical. 10% of that, guys, so that's 960 million would be the holdback dividend. If torchlight's cut 9.6 billion, based off of that based on the $80 oil price, and then, you know, that's torchlight's cut. And that also includes, guys, wiggle room for the increased amount of cost of goods sold. That allows 960 million. That would be $960 million for NextBridge to then develop the assets, you know, then develop and start pumping out oil. That would really be their VC money to start developing this property, right? And you can see on the NextBridge website the exclusive development of its property, right? So if they do develop the property and instead keep that money, and then your preferred share is actually the share in NextBridge, and then you get dividends, well, then shorts are kind of on the hook for those dividends, and it kind of works out. You get the money for your shares. NextBridge does get ample funding to begin developing this property with that holdback amount of those preferred shares. And then you might get that Dr. Pepper situation of the NextBridge. You know, that would be basically 6.6 MMTLPs would be the one preferred share. If it's a new private company, an equity share. So that's the unlimited liability for shorts. It could go out that way, or you could get pro rata that money back in a year, but it's sort of advantageous. And if the dividend's a high enough payout, people aren't going to care at that point, really. They'll be happy to get that preferred share in NextBridge. And it's advantageous for NextBridge because that's, you know, even... You know, of course, that's not all going to be 960 million. That's, you know, there's going to be underwriter fees to this, which part of that 10% pays for. It's also going to be title transfers, because each of the leases, lease transfer fees, and there's 132,000 acres. Each of those lease blocks are like, what, 686 acres? That's a lot of leases, a lot of paperwork. It's not going to equal out to 960 million, I can tell you that. So that would be very advantageous to NextBridge, if it is NextBridge, to keep that 10% as their money to develop this property. This is just wild speculation. This is the wild speculation spinoff holdings theory that with the 60-day IRS rule, something's going to be announced soon. If it is this one, it could be a different scenario, right? I could be completely wrong. If it is this scenario, you might hear something soon. And then, you know, it goes into Oilco. You get your first payment. 60 days later, you know, then half your shares are still trapped in Oilco because you have to wait at least 60 days or more to get the second, but that puts us at the end of March. That ties into this letter, official letter, that, you know, conclude the spinoff of Oilco. It's already in Oilco, but it concludes. The spinoff of Oilco goes away in March. Into March. That would still be Q1. That gives that 60-day window. That creates that tax deferred event. VC money, there's no corporate taxes in there, so it works out for everybody involved. And then NextBridge gets that like $900 million, or maybe if you want to be conservative, $800 million to build wells on this new property and start producing. And then if that's the case, then you do get that private equity share in this company, to which short sellers might have unlimited liability, and as long as it remains private. That will be fun. If anything is announced this week, things could get wild on the MMTLP end, especially if they announce specific numbers. And things might get wild on the MMTLP end, at which case, if that happens, I will just start live streaming, and then you can watch the video. But I'm not too sure. Again, this if it plays out this way, we'll hear something very soon. This is just speculation. And, you know, if you don't hear anything, okay, maybe it isn't this scenario. Maybe it's something else. We'll go from there. Okay, guys, I will see you soon. Goodbye.